Coming live from Gosport, England, UK is our guest this evening. Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Tim Heale, ex-British Army sailor, sportsperson, and super podcast host, and now a published author. Welcome to the show, Tim.
Thank you so much for having me, AJ. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. Thank you. And we'll be talking about how to make it an extraordinary life for ordinary people. So, Tim, you have traversed a lot in different things that you have done as a
Yeah.
British Army infantryman, and then you were deployed outside as a sailor. You went sailed to the Baltic and back, and also sailed around the UK with your wife as well as the ship's cat. And then you
Absolutely.
are doing the super podcast called Ordinary People's Ordinary Stories. So, just to ask you, Tim, looking back at life, do you consider yours as a ordinary life with extraordinary activities, or an extraordinary life? How do you consider a life that you well lived?
Oh, I'm just an ordinary bloke that seized every opportunity that's come along and made it extraordinary. I mean, I've had an amazing life. I've got no regrets. So I've just enjoyed life. I've always had my glass half full to overflowing. I've never really had a half empty glass. So, but I would urge everybody, as an opportunity arises, grasp it with both hands and get in there. Have fun with it.
Right, have fun with it. And you see, very few people at this life that you have seen, very few people have lived a life that is of no with no regrets. A lot of people carry a lot of regrets since long, and they carry it all over till the long period in time. And that is why it is very important to learn from a person like you how to have an extraordinary life, that too without regrets. What do you think has been your reason for this having an extraordinary life in whatever, even if it was a simple life and a very active life many a times? What is the recipe for success?
I think it goes back to my initial days in the British Army, the training that he give you. It sets you up for the rest of your life. Back when I joined the army back in 1974, it was a pretty tough, brutal regime. It made us tough, and we just got in there. They knock you down in the first few weeks with all the square bashing and everything, and then they build you up, and they give you a set of values and standards to live and work by. And I think that set me up to take every opportunity through life. I've always been a positive person, which makes a difference. I mean, there's quite a lot of negative people about, and sometimes their negativity can rub off on people. But it's down to us positive types to push that message out, to just be positive. There's so much great going on around the world. There's a lot you can find negativity everywhere, but to be positive about everything, and look at every situation, and with that situation, you can make the best of it. So that's why I'd urge. I mean, if an opportunity comes along and you're umming and ahhing, go for it. What's the worst can happen? You fail at
Right,
it. Failure just means that you get another opportunity to be better at it.
right, right, Tim. So now let's look at life through your eyes, but two different uh, times in history. One
Yeah,
is the present, one is the past. Say 30
yeah,
years back, 20 years back, life was a bit different. In
yeah.
today's
I
time,
mean,
when we have got all these gadgets and social media and so much of connectivity, the disconnect between people, human beings, is growing. And forget about the disconnect between two human beings. A lot of times we see disconnect between self as the person you are and what you have become. You have almost put on a mask. And these masks are not just because of COVID, they seem to be something part of your personality now. So, how do you live? Is an extraordinary life possible today? How do you see it?
I think so. I think everybody has the opportunity to make the best of what they've got, and that's the key to it. Is have your glass half full, and make the best of whatever situation that you find yourself in, and be true to yourself. If you can't be true to yourself, how are you going to be true to anybody else? Look at yourself, evaluate yourself all the time. Look at what you can do better, and I think that's how I've done it. I mean, what you see is what you get with me. I just love life, and if an opportunity comes along to better myself, then I'll have a go at it. And if I fail at it, it just means it gives us a second opportunity to do it different the next time and make better of it. So failure is just a way of saying that you've got a second chance to do it right. How's that?
Right, right, Tim, right. But look at the present day for a young man. He switches on the TV. He gets
Yeah,
very different sort of a vibe from the television. Either it's news, or even if it's any a soap or any other thing. If you look at, if he opens the newspaper, so much of politics, not only from across their own nations, but from across internationally. And you see different sort of words those have come. Earlier we used to think about being awake. Now there is something called woke. By the time you
yeah.
figure out what this is, I don't know whether you wake up or you sleep, but you are certainly confused on which side you are actually on. And then you the state of the world. In Europe, there is a war going on, and everywhere people are still trying to figure out whether COVID is over or still there. And you in amidst all these things, there somewhere in very close to, not very far from India, you find their missiles are being fired. Amidst all these things, an individual who is 20, 25 years of age, how can he think of living an extraordinary life? If you say he can do it, he or she can do it, please tell us how and where he or she should begin.
Well, for those that are in the UK, I mean, there's some golden opportunities. They really are. I would say at the moment, if I had the time again, if I was starting out now, I would look at joining the Royal Navy. The Royal Navy has some amazing opportunities. They've got the two new aircraft carriers. They've got some new frigates coming on board. They've got some new patrol vessels, which opens up the world to you. The British Army is tough at the moment. They're getting a rough. They got the rough end of the stick. Really have. They've been deployed all over the place. They're not taking part in war fighting as such at the moment, but they're training up lots of other armies around the world to do the war fighting. At the same time, the budgets are being cut. The defence budget's being cut. The numbers of soldiers are being cut. They're spending lots of money on, yes, new equipment, but if they haven't got the soldiers, and we're struggling at recruiting across the board. And that's not just for the military, that's across the board in industry as well. People don't want to work for some bizarre reason. So there are huge opportunities out there, and I think that's the same for everywhere else. Opportunities are there for the taking, and you just If you try something and you don't like it, move on. There's always another opportunity. So if an opportunity presents it, grab it and give it a go. The worst thing that can happen is you don't like it. So you move on to the next opportunity. And that's the way to go through life is grab opportunities as they come. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. There's always another opportunity around the corner.
Right,
That's
right,
that's my that's my advice to young people.
right. And okay, so you've got a lot of opportunity. You make
Yep.
the best use of opportunity, but you see, workplaces, there is so much of stress, there is so much of unhappiness. Back home, there are in personal relationships, there is a bit of tension, and there is a lot of instability in a lot of relationships. People are not
Mm.
as assured as they used to be before, whatever the reason. Every time it's not something like anyone else is having an affair. It's not. People are just too much into so many other things. What would you tell them? How should they take their life going forward? How should they take their work life? How should they take their personal life? How should they look at both these aspects of life?
Well, to start with, I would say you you live you work to live rather than live to work. In a relationship, if you're in a relationship, what I would suggest, and this is how it's worked for me, is set aside a a day, switch off all the media, switch your phone off, and just engage with your partner. Just spend a day with them, talking, just so you've got no uh, um, you've got no distractions at all. So you're spending time, quality time. That's the key. Is spending quality time with somebody you love. Your work life, it's lots of people get hooked up on going to work and working 24/7, working so hard that they miss living, and it shouldn't be like that. You don't need to earn millions of pounds to be happy. You look at millionaires, most of them ain't happy. You look at somebody that's just getting by, generally they're fairly happy-go-lucky people. So money's not the answer. Quality of life is the answer. Quality in a relationship is the answer to happiness. Switch off all the devices, get rid of all the distractions, spend some quality time with somebody you love, and your life will be much, much better. That's my advice. And
Right.
if you find yourself going to work and you're working it every hour that God sends, then you're doing something wrong. You need to get that work-life balance sorted.
Right, Tim. Right. A lot of people I talk to, young people, my age, somewhere in the 40s, especially young people and even teenagers, several of them talk about life is more competitive today, indicating that it's more difficult nowadays to get even the basics of thing that was possible earlier on. What would you tell them uh, if I am if they were to tell you the same thing?
Life's different. From when I grew up as a kid, we didn't have. I mean, I didn't get a television until I think I was about 12 when we got a television. We just didn't have them. I mean, they just weren't available. And if you did have a telly, there was only one channel, and then it went to two channels, and then to three channels, and it was like that for a long time. We didn't have mobile phones. We, if you wanted to send a message to somebody, you had to write a letter on a bit of paper and put it in a postbox. That doesn't really happen much nowadays. It's only the last sort of 20 odd years that we've had stuff like emails and the internet has sort of taken off like a rocket. And now communications is so much. Is it easier? It's probably easier to communicate now than it's ever been. Before you had to rely on snail mail. You write a letter and it takes a few days to get to somebody, and it takes a few days for a letter to come back. That's how we used to do it. Nowadays with global media really does do what it says on the tin. When we were in wars years ago, it took weeks to get the information out. Now it's immediate. So yes, it's different. For people nowadays, it's a lot different. However, having said that, there's an awful lot more opportunities nowadays than we ever had. They're just different ones. So,
Right, Tim. Right.
yeah.
Now let's come to the present. Yeah, because you see, people think that if there is some sort of a engagement that ends up, they think everything has ended. Like somebody loses a job, somebody has retired. So a lot of people think, okay, my life is not. I am just retired. I'm of no use. Even if it's at 40 or 30, everybody wants to retire at 30, but don't know what to do after that. Yeah, that's it. They want to earn a lot of money. So whether 30, 25, their age isn't decreasing. And that's
Yeah.
another stress. But I haven't heard anybody telling what exactly they want to do. Very few. They just say, I'll be just in some beach and having fun, and I don't know. But that can be done even now. So,
Well, I can tell you about my retirement and what
right,
life is like now being a retired person. I don't know how I actually had time to go to work. I'm I'm so busy nowadays. I'm probably more busy now than I was when I was at work. And I
exactly.
retired 4 years ago, or just over 4.5 years ago now. And
So how
life for
did it
me is
how
busy.
did it how did it happen after retirement? How did things work for you? Now you are super podcast host of a very top podcast yourself that keeps you super busy because you
Yeah.
are hosting this podcast about ordinary people's extraordinary lives. And I can tell you it's very famous, not only from your point of view, but even as a listener point of view, I can tell you that. So how did this change, that transition happen? Did you work hard towards it, or did it happen naturally, or did you plan too much for it?
Well, it came about really. I was looking at ancestry. This is going back before the pandemic. I was looking at ancestry. I found my great grandfather, who lived in Portsmouth, which is about 3 miles from where I live nowadays. He was a chief stoker in the Royal Navy. He died in 1930. So I got to thinking, without a time machine, I can't go back and have a chat about him and what his life was like. His story is lost. And then we got into the pandemic. We got into lockdown, and I thought to myself, well, if I don't tell my story, that's going to be lost. Now, kids today won't go and have a chat with their grandparents about what they did when they were growing up. So by the time they grow up, it'll be too late to ask the grandparents what they did. So for me, it's all about leaving a legacy for future generations so they can look back at this time in history to see what we did. And that's how it started. So I did 24 half an hour episodes of my life. So if there's any of your listeners out there that suffer from insomnia, stick one of those on. It's likely to put them to sleep straight away, or give them nightmares. Put a caveat on that. And then I got to the end of my life, and I thought, what do I do next? We're still in lockdown, so so I thought, why don't I tell other people's stories? So I started with my mother. So I got her story, recorded that, and now I'm, I don't know, 235 episodes in, telling other people's stories. So future generations will be able to look back at this time in history and know what ordinary people did with their extraordinary lives. That's the driving force behind my podcasts. I also do now, I do a live stream on a Thursday talking about taboo subjects. So we talk about bereavement, we talk about death, we talk about suicide, we talk about depression, we talk about anxiety, and all manner of mental health issues. And I have a panel of guests come on each week to talk about those subjects and their experiences. Like this evening, I've got two fighter pilots, American fighter pilots, Top Gun pilots. In fact, they're Top Gun instructors. One's at the American Top Gun School, the Navy Top Gun School. The other one is from the US Air Force Top Gun School, or Weapons School, they call it. So it's slightly different. So, and they're coming on to talk about how they deal with their mental health when they've been off on bombing raids, where they know that they've been dropping bombs that have been killing people. So we're going to be talking about that this evening. Next week, I've got 4 firefighter chiefs coming on from one from Germany, one from the UK, one from America, and one from Canada. And we're going to be talking about how they look after their people when they're out seeing traumatic incidents all the time. The following week, I've got Service Dogs UK coming on to talk about these service dogs that help guys that have got PTSD. So these are the sort of subjects that we cover on my live stream on a Thursday. And then I've just started doing a quiz on a Tuesday, just to have a bit of fun, basically. So we do a quiz on a Tuesday, and it's basically 20 questions and 10 fun facts, and we do that over an hour, and it's we have a lot of fun with it, actually. And I get lots of people coming in, and all they got to do is mark themselves and put their scores in the chat box. So that's fun, and that's just growing the channel and pushing the message out there. And I plug the other 2 channels while I'm doing it. So that's that's what keeps me fairly busy.
Lots of things
Yeah.
indeed. And I'm just wondering how you are able to do all that.
Technology. Just bottom line, technology. It's transformed my life, what I do. I mean, when we were in lockdown, I mean, because I was retired, we couldn't go off and do anything. We couldn't go out to work. We couldn't do. I mean, we could barely just sort of walk down to the shops and back once a day. So that's how my life's transformed.
A lot of time today, technology is almost like a villain.
Yeah,
Uh,
it
your
can be.
company can email you anytime. Your boss can WhatsApp you anytime. Can send you any file anytime. Sometimes it can be a problem. How do you view this technology as?
I mean, it can have lots of negative connotations, but there's one key factor that you've got control over. There's the off button. That's it. You can control what you do. Just switch the power off. Only for 12 hours or 8 hours. So before you go to bed, switch it off. Switch your phone off. Switch all your tech off and get a good night's sleep. If it's really important, they'll send a run around and wake you up, won't they?
Right.
And so unless somebody's life is in danger, it ain't that important. it can wait, and that's the key. Turn it off. You have the power to do that. Simple as turn it off. So if you've got a demanding boss, if you've got a boss that's a bully that constantly pesters you 24 hours a day, switch him off for 8 hours,
Right.
and that'll give you the energy then to be able to tackle him. And if he is a bully, then that needs tackling, because bullies shouldn't be allowed, and they need calling out. And and
Right.
and it's and that's one of the core values is having the integrity to be able to stand up and say something's not right.
Right, Tim. Right. Where do one connect with you and also listen to your podcast, your join your live streams? How does one do that?
Well, for the live streams, if you go onto YouTube and you just type in Tim Heale 9, and that's a number 9. That's me, me rugby number. I played scrum half. So Tim Heale 9 will bring up my channel, and then you can pick up the live streams off of there, the links to the lives, and you'll pick up all my podcasts, because I do all my podcasts now are done via this StreamYard, so you can see the people I'm talking to. They're also on. If you do a search for Ordinary People's Extraordinary Stories on any of the major podcast platforms, you'll find it there as well, in the audio versions. So that's where you can pretty much get hold of me. Also, quick plug for
Yes.
for
Yes, I
for
was about to.
Podmatch.
Yes. An author now.
So this is how I've connected with AJ. Podmatch is a fantastic platform to be able to connect with people, and there's 16 of us top. There we all are. Get it in the right
Right.
place. 16 of us top hosts have contributed to this book, and there's another book out, How to Be a Guest, with another 16 top guests, and that's available on Amazon at the moment. And it's just launched. Literally, that book has just launched. So get the book, have a read through, see if you want to be a host or a guest, or you want to be a hybrid, so you can be a host and a guest, and it opens up a whole world of people to talk to.
Right, right. So anybody who wants to be a guest or a host, they can also always read those books, and also to be a great host, they can always listen to Ordinary People's Extraordinary Stories by Tim Heale. Thank you so
Absolutely.
much. Yeah, thank you so much, Tim, for coming on to the show. It's a pleasure to talk to you and learn so much about how to live an extraordinary life, even in a even when it's a ordinary life that one may consider it to be. Thank you so much indeed.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.